My name is Larry Brockman. I work with EPA's Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards on residential wood smoke. This module will provide you with information on EPA programs and information that can help you develop and implement programs to address fine particle pollution from residential wood burning. I will discuss a wide range of programs today, but also I'm not the only one that's going to speak. You're going to hear from other EPA employees, state, local, tribal air pollution control officials, hearth industry representatives, American Lung Association, and even citizens through some video recordings that will be included in this presentation. I'm going to talk about why we care about wood smoke, the types of wood burning appliances that are out there. Spend a good bit of time on the Great American Wood Stove Changeout campaign, discuss EPA's voluntary fireplace and hydronic heater programs. Recently we had launched a Burn Wise education and outreach campaign we'll touch on. Many of you know we've been working on the New Source Performance Standard for wood heaters. We'll talk briefly about that. And then a resource guide that we recently developed, Control Strategies for Reducing Residential Wood Smoke document. That'll be very informative for you. A lot of the information that we have available will be in this document. So let's look at wood smoke and that sweet smell of wood smoke. But really what makes it so sweet? That's one of the challenges I think we face as regulators. People think it smells good and they have positive connotations, but in reality, wood smoke has carbon monoxide, NOx, SOx, fine particles, and as many of you know, the toxic pollutants are also in wood smoke. Benzene, toluene, the aldehyde gases such as formaldehyde, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and palms, and a little bit of dioxin. So there are real reasons to look at wood smoke from an air pollution control standpoint. In terms of the magnitude of the problem, residential wood burning in total and throughout the U.S., there are some 420,000 tons of fine particle emissions from residential wood smoke. That's primarily fireplaces, wood stoves. That 420,000 tons, that's more than all the petroleum refineries, pulp and paper mills, and cement manufacturers combined. So it's a significant amount of fine particles. It's also emitted during really a 6-month period from around October through March. So you really have it all occurring in a shorter period of time, not throughout the entire year. Also, from the 7 polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that EPA is particularly concerned with, 62% of the total is coming from residential wood combustion. So again, toxic emissions are something else that we're concerned about. From a climate standpoint, methane and black carbon and CO2 are all emitted. Of course, with more complete combustion of wood, you have less methane and black carbon. Black carbon, many of you know, is something that's kind of in the news now, and with more complete combustion of wood, we have less of that emitted. CO2, of course, is emitted during combustion of wood, and with more efficient wood burning, you have less CO2 being emitted. So there's some potential climate change benefits associated with more complete combustion of wood and reducing emissions. Finally, talking about really locally, you're looking at wood smoke. During the winter times, you have poor dispersion relative to other, say, industry sources that have a stack of release points of 150 feet. Chimneys, of course, can be 15, 20 feet and close to people's homes. So you have poor dispersion during the winter time, you have low stacks, and potential for high exposure. Finally, I want to move kind of from a little bit of my talk on wood smoke and the introduction here and give you an opportunity to hear from a few different folks. John Brockman is an EPA employee, now retired, was an EPA employee. He'll speak to the health effects from wood smoke. And then Dr. Brad Black from Libby, Montana will also talk about wood smoke and health effects. We have a big project in Libby, Montana you'll hear a little bit more about later on. And then Sherry Fairbrother from Libby, Montana, a nurse, will also speak about health effects that they've seen from wood smoke and some of the emission reductions and some of the benefits associated with that.
There's a number of ways we've looked at wood smoke in terms of trying to assess the health effects. You can look at the components and do toxicologic studies in animals to see what kind of effects you have. And there's just a wide variety of effects because there's a wide variety of substance. Carbon monoxide has its own effects on the heart and the bloodstream. Formaldehyde is a known respiratory irritant and a carcinogen. The hundreds of compounds that make up the particles in wood smoke are known to have some immunosuppressant characteristics and other toxic effects.
I don't see the clusters of respiratory illnesses that seem to prevail in the past, clearly surrounding the visible increase in air particulates in the community. Since we have had some of our wood stove changeouts and upgrades to EPA certified stoves, I've seen a clear visible change, and certainly have not seen the clusters of respiratory illness that we have seen in the past.
When you walk out the door in the wintertime, you're no longer afraid to take a deep breath of fresh air, no matter what the temperature is, because you don't see the things floating in the air that you did before.
Now we've heard a little bit about health effects from wood smoke. Let's talk about wood-burning appliances, and want to show you some images of older stoves. These stoves are stoves that were built really typically before 1990. They have no control technology, typically just a metal box. Before 1990, stoves were not required to have any kind of control technologies. After 1990, which was the new source performance standard the EPA developed, we required that wood stoves manufactured were cleaner burning. These stoves that you see here, there are probably around 9 million of these in people's homes throughout the country. Another 3 million or so are EPA certified, so around 75% of the stoves in people's homes are older stoves. And like, say, diesel engines, they can last for a long, long time. So the effort that we have underway is to try to get these things out of circulation. Now moving on to EPA certified stoves, the image you see here is a freestanding stove. It's a EPA certified stove. You'll notice that it does have glass doors. Almost all EPA certified stoves have glass doors, for instance. They're, again, 70% cleaner burning, about 50% more energy efficient. The next image here is a fireplace insert wood stove. Again, EPA certified, built after 1990, more cleaner burning. This will require a liner attached to the stove that goes up the chimney of the house. People ask, well, how do you identify an EPA certified stove? There's one sure way to do so, and that manufacturers are required to attach a label that shows essentially the same contents that you see on the screen here, that says something about US EPA meeting the emission standard. So you can look on the back of a stove and determine whether or not it's meeting EPA standards or not. There are other types of wood-burning appliances, wood pellets and wood pellet stoves. The image you see here is a wood pellet stove. Some downsides about wood pellet stoves is that they do require electricity. On the other hand, it reduces the operator error in that you essentially feed the stove wood pellets, or you can also put in, say, corn into many of these stoves. You're going to hear a little bit more from the hearth industry on these types of stoves in just a minute also. The end goal, though, really is to have no visible emissions, significant emission reductions, moving from an old stove to a cleaner EPA certified stove, pellet stove. That's really the ultimate goal that we have. Now we're going to hear from a few folks on these cleaner burning technologies. Particularly we'll hear from John Crouch from the Hearth, Patio and Barbecue Association, Dan Carnes, a retailer from North Carolina. Dan will talk about catalytic stoves and how those work to reduce emissions. And Mark McSweeney with the Chimney Safety Institute of America will talk about the importance of venting and the connection between having a good venting system and the operation of the hearth product.
The key to the way the US EPA certified wood stoves work is that they introduce air at least 3 or 4 different places in the fire. Some air enters the fire low, some comes out right here and washes as an air curtain across the glass to keep the smoke back from the glass. But the most important thing about a certified stove are these tubes right up here. They create an inside-out fire. When you think about a gas cooking stove in your home, methane gas comes out into your room air and mixes with the oxygen in the room air and makes a clean blue flame. These tubes inject oxygen into a chamber which is full of smoke and basically energy. And so they look like little gas jets as the oxygen comes out. And that's one of the key ways in which we burn the smoke. Another way to burn clean is to actually take sawdust and make it into a miniature log or wood pellet. Then you can design the fire so that it always has the proper air to fuel ratio. These pellets are made of sawdust and are available in bags, 40-pound bags, and thousands of families every year are changing out old wood stoves and putting in pellet stoves. One of the things that families like about this kind of product is that it's automatic. It can have a thermostat. When the room needs heat, the wood stove, or in this case a pellet stove, can provide heat, and when the room doesn't need heat, the pellet stove can shut down. The pellets actually burn in a tiny burn pot here in the bottom of the stove and are fed into the fire as the fire calls for pellets.
This is another EPA stove. It uses a catalytic combustor. It's a honeycomb that reduces the threshold of combustion for the flue gases so that we can get more heat out of the fire to get that clean burn. Again, burning gases out of the wood that normally in the old stoves would have been pollutants now are being burned up, again raising the efficiency, the heating efficiency of the stoves.
One of the other options when people change out their old wood stove is to change to a gas heating hearth product. Sometimes folks don't realize that our industry has for the last 15 years made products that look like a wood stove but burn natural or liquid petroleum gas. And in rural areas especially, propane or LP gas can be an important aspect of changeouts. And some of these gas hearth products are freestanding and look just like a wood stove, except of course that they burn gas. And some of them insert into a fireplace. And particularly in suburban communities, in the 80s, many people put inserts into their fireplaces, but they have natural gas to their house. Those are kind of a no-brainer for changeouts. We capture a lot of emission reductions by changing out those old fireplace inserts into a gas heating hearth product.
Wood stoves themselves are not a standalone appliance, but rather they're part of an entire system. So as we're replacing wood stoves, those of us that are involved in chimney safety want to ensure that we're looking at that entire system, which includes the piece that vents out of the home. If you have an improper or poorly operating ventilation system, you can have the best wood stove in the world, but you've got to make sure the entire system is working.
Okay, we just heard about the cleaner burning technology stoves, and the major goal or effort we have underway is to change out these old stoves to cleaner burning technologies. We started a program several years ago called the Great American Wood Stove Changeout Campaign. And it's really a financial incentive program to replace or change out old efficient wood stoves, fireplaces, to cleaner burning technologies such as gas stoves, wood pellet stoves, EPA certified wood stoves. I thought it'd be important to hear firsthand from others than EPA on the benefits associated with wood stove changeouts. You're going to hear from Harry Klodowski from the Southwest Pennsylvania area, Alita Kennard from Sacramento, and Larry Green from the Sacramento area. You'll note when you see Larry being interviewed, he has a hard hat on. We had a media kickoff event, and we were trying to highlight the importance of taking these old units and scrapping them, ideally recycling them. So we were at a scrapyard center with the media there also. We're also going to hear from Lisa Woodard from the Spokane Air District, and then Tom Soden, a retailer, will speak on the safety issues, the safety benefits of going from an older unit to a cleaner burning, properly installed unit.
Well, we look at the air pollution benefits in a number of ways. On the big scale, wood stove pollution is not as big as, say, power plant pollution, but on the community and local level, it really is important. As a practicing environmental attorney, I get half a dozen calls every year from people who live next to somebody with a wood stove and they're being smoked out of their houses. So the health impact is very dramatic if you live in a house with a wood stove, an old wood stove, or you live next to somebody with an old wood stove. And in our rural communities with the hills and valleys and the temperature inversions, the wood stove smoke concentration can be very significant on the community level.
We did a first phase voucher program this fall. We changed out 240 devices completely through the system, and we got about 4 tons a year of reduction from those 240 devices.
The benefits from the change-out program come in different places. First of all, for the individual homeowner, they can have some very high pollution levels around their home and in the neighborhood. So they're going to get an immediate improvement locally for themselves. In the region, we've got well over 100,000 wood stoves here. So what we're going to see is over time, we'll gradually be making a dent in the oldest ones, and we hope to see the improvements at the monitor, because that's where it really counts for us, for our attainment status.
Gosh, there's so many benefits on so many different levels. Definitely health, the health of themselves, their families, and their neighborhood in terms of the reduction in smoke that's emitted. Definitely the efficiency, you know, they're going to get more bang for their buck. They're going to save quite a bit on wood, and wood prices are going up from what I've heard. So definitely a savings on how much wood that they would be burning. And just their overall health. You know, we have an issue in Spokane with asthma, childhood asthma. We have a high rate of that. And so that would definitely be something from a family perspective that I would want to point out as well.
Safety features of the stoves are so much greater nowadays. You know, with the reburn system, with a 6-inch flue, because they're burning more efficient, you've got less creosote going up the chimney, so there's less chance of things like a chimney fire. And stoves themselves have closer clearances to a combustible, so they actually take up less space in your house also.
As you can see, that there are many benefits associated with wood stove changeouts. At a community level, just to summarize, really we have the opportunity to reduce fine particles and toxic pollutants, improve health for children, elderly, the community as a whole, and improve visibility. At the homeowner level, there's the opportunity, of course, with the emission reductions, the improved efficiency of 50%. Of course, that's using less wood, which saves time and money, energy. And the reduced risk of chimney fires are some of the real benefits associated with this program. I mentioned Libby, Montana a couple times, and wanted to highlight this because this is a community where wood smoke was the primary problem with fine particles in the community. It was non-attainment for the annual PM standard, and was looking like it was going to violate the 24-hour standard. Had a massive wood stove changeout program there, lots of lessons learned, some research done, and really wanted to make sure that people are aware of this program because it highlights and pulls together all the key facets of a wood stove changeout program. So let's listen in some testimonials and some researchers and others about the Libby Wood Stove Changeout campaign.
Libby, Montana is one community where air quality has significantly improved thanks to a wood stove changeout program. Libby is located in a bowl-shaped valley surrounded by steep mountains that can cause smoke from wood stoves to get trapped close to the ground, which can be unhealthy. Many of Libby's residents rely on wood stoves for heating, and before the wood stove changeout, the entire valley would become enshrouded in smoke during the cold winter months.
The thing that's been most noticeable in the last several years has been the residual problems with visible particulates, visible plumes of smoke coming into the air, especially in the mornings, traveling into the community. I rarely see those anymore. Occasionally you'll see a plume, but it's very infrequent. And the visible accumulation of particulates is very minimal compared to what we were experiencing even 2 years ago.
We've had an amazing project developed in that we were able to utilize private industry, federal government, state government, local government, and university system. All of these partners working together were able to address the wood stove issue in Libby, and the result of that was a change-out program that has removed over 1,100 non-certified stoves from the community and replaced them with certified provable heating appliances now. And the result of that, just beyond scientific result of that, just from anybody observing the air that's been here any amount of time, has been a remarkable turnover.
The success in Libby was the result of including all of the key ingredients that should be part of any wood stove changeout program. The team effort included a broad group of organizations, with local government managing the program. Federal, state, and local funding, combined with donations from the hearth industry, provided the financial resources. And a strong campaign educated Libby's residents about the program. New regulations were passed to ensure participation throughout the community and to set up a system for identifying and disposing of old stoves. By the time the program was complete, all of the hard work paid off. Libby's air quality improved.
The visual impact has been significant. I have people stop me in the grocery store and comment how clean the air is or how they don't smell the wood smoke anymore. And I've been privileged to see the results of our change out, which has been significant, as stated by Montana Department of Environmental Quality. But just as a layman, I mean, you can see the air is significantly cleaner. You can't see it anymore. And in the past, it was just one of those givens that, you know, it's fall and the wood stoves are cranking up and we were going to live with smoke all winter. Well, that's not the case anymore. I believe we've solved a very significant problem.
A study done by Dr. Tony Ward of the University of Montana on indoor air quality showed a dramatic improvement in the air inside homes after the old stoves were replaced.
The old stove, we dealt with a lot more smoke in the house, and the girls have asthma, and so it tended to aggravate their systems and they would get colds more often. And this winter with the new stove, it's helped improve the air quality in the house a lot.
As you can hear, there were lots of research done, a lot of good work done in Libby, Montana. To summarize just briefly, there were significant reductions of indoor PM 2.5 in that effort. And then the wintertime PM 2.5 levels went down 7.5 micrograms, which has really been significant in helping them move in the direction of attainment. In fact, they're being redesignated for the PM 2.5 annual standard, and in the process of doing that, really driven almost exclusively from the wood stove change-out and the education efforts that have gone underway in the community. In addition, their numbers were looking like they were going to exceed the 24-hour standard. This has helped them stay in attainment for the 24-hour standard. This campaign, the wood stove change-out campaign, is really more than just Libby. A lot of people have heard about the Libby wood stove change-out, but there are over 44 communities throughout the country in California, Idaho, Montana, New Hampshire, Ohio, Midwest, and Northeast, Washington State. They're all over the country. Just wanted to share with you a quick glimpse of the number of places and the locations that wood stove change-outs have occurred. In terms of the overall benefits and what's happened on the ground, the progress to date, there are over 13,000 old wood stoves and fireplaces that have been changed out or retrofitted. That's resulted in almost 250 tons of PM 2.5 emission reductions that have occurred. This is happening every year. From the toxic standpoint, there are over 40 tons of hazardous air pollutants that have been reduced from this program. Again, annual benefits. That's resulted in more than $84 million in estimated health benefits that are going to occur every year from these efforts. So some real emission reductions and real health benefits associated with reducing wood smoke. If we had the luxury of being able to change out all the wood stoves with the flip of the switch and get all those emission reductions, we could have huge potential health benefits, anywhere from $35 billion to $86 billion in health benefits associated with reduced mortality, non-fatal heart attacks, asthma attacks, days of work loss. So there's real health benefits associated with these programs. There have been a few states that have, and localities who have asked us to help them estimate their own benefits if they were to change out all the wood stoves in their state. And that's some technical assistance that we can provide to states and locals, as to potentially do some health benefit analysis and estimates for your community, your state. You may be wondering, okay, if we were interested in this program, what's available? How do we get moving on this? Well, there are lots of resources really available that EPA has, that we've found from others, that are available to you, mostly on our website and in this the strategy for controlling reducing wood smoke document that I'll speak more to. We have brochures that are available, posters, case studies. We have case studies on low-income programs, tribal programs, loan programs. So a lot of information available. We have a how-to guide. There's a wood stove change-out emission guide for SIPs that help you calculate your emission reductions, associated SIP credits with these change-out programs. We have an emissions calculator, so if you change out stoves, what amount of tons of emissions am I going to get reduced? Same with the county level wood smoke emissions inventory calculator. These two calculators are also available, but you can contact Roy Huntley at 919-541-1060. He can help you address questions related to these calculators. In terms of partners, if you're going to work on the wood stove change out, it's important to have partners, as you heard earlier. The Hearth Patio Barbecue Association certainly is a great resource. They have the potential to provide discounts in a wood stove change out. John Crouch with the Hearth Patio Barbecue Association is a great contact for the HPBA. American Lung Association is another organization to potentially partner with. The Chimney Safety Institute of America. They're essentially a trade association for all the chimney sweeps. Chimney sweeps really are the people on the ground in a community that know who's burning fireplaces, who's got an old stove, who's got a new stove, and they're oftentimes willing partners. So don't overlook working with your local chimney sweeps. Department of Energy has some programs, both the low-income weatherization and then most recently stimulus funds that are available through the Department of Energy for potential change-out programs. There are also federal and some state tax credits available. Oregon, Montana, Idaho are states that have some biomass-related tax credits. There's a federal tax credit available in 2010, 30% or up to $1,500 for biomass hearth products that are 75% energy efficient or better, which can help with your change-out program. Other funding options, just briefly, state revolving loan programs. You can look and see if your state has some programs. There's also a newer program called the Voluntary Environmental Improvement Bonds. It's essentially a low-interest program for homeowners that use property as their collateral for a loan to make up programs like upgrading to a cleaner wood-burning stove, pellet stove, or even solar panels affordable. The City of Berkeley piloted this program with success recently, and so it's something that EPA is looking to try to use as another tool for people to utilize. The Department of Energy also has a program. It's called Property Assessed Clean Energy for energy efficiency and renewable energy. Similar to the VIBES program, Department of Energy also has resources associated with that, so certainly something that communities can use and should look into if they're interested. Now, shifting from the wood stoves to the hydronic heaters or outdoor wood boilers. Back in 2007, EPA launched a program, a voluntary program on hydronic heaters to essentially get the industry to develop cleaner burning, more energy efficient units because of the outcry we were having from both residents who were being impacted by hydronic heaters, but also many of the air districts and states in the Northeast and Midwest. These units can produce a lot of emissions, and we wanted to try to do something quickly, more quickly than a regulation, so we developed this voluntary program. I want to talk really briefly about how these units work in case folks are not aware of them. It's essentially, as shown on the screen here, you are taking a wood stove and moving it outside of your home and putting it into a small shed-like structure. You have a firebox that's outside of the house, but you're taking cold water and running it from the house, heating it up around the firebox, and then sending that hot water back to the home for forced air, radiant heat for your hot water use. And what happens is you have essentially a water jacket around a fire, and that temperature in that firebox never gets very hot. Thus, you get really poor combustion and a lot of emissions. So EPA, working with industry, developed this and launched this program. There's a phase 1 and phase 2 structure to this. The phase 1 models are around 70% cleaner. Phase 2 is 90% cleaner, so significant emission reductions. We've estimated there's been around a total of 4,100 tons of emissions that have been avoided through this program. That's resulted in anywhere from $1.4 to $3.4 billion of health benefits per year from this program. So some real benefits associated with it. Just real quickly, the key components of the program is that there's an MOU between the EPA and the manufacturers that outline expectations. If you're going to participate in the program, there's some permanent labels and text on the qualifying models that state, for instance, that the user should only put in dry season wood, no trash. We've had complaints and issues with certainly things other than wood going into the hydronic heaters. There's hang tags that are associated with the model. Phase 1 and Phase 2 includes information about the unit, such as emission levels. And then the owner's manual has some specifics on proper operation and maintenance. Again, important aspect of how the unit operates. EPA's website would then list the manufacturers who meet those qualified Phase 1 or Phase 2 limits. So that helps with the marketing side for the retailer. So there's some of that partnership coming out there. Show you some images of the hydronic heaters. You can see here a hydronic heater outside of someone's home. A lot of emissions coming out, poor dispersion, and obviously putting high levels of fine particles and wood smoke, certainly in their home and near their home. Another image here showing the amount of smoke that can be generated from these units in a more rural setting than the previous image. Again, you can see in those cold winter days, you get poor dispersion, and that wood smoke can just lay in a valley. In this image, you can see someone's tried to extend their stack to try to get better mixing and dispersion. But again, on these cold days, you can see the downdraft from the top of the stack to the bottom. Still not great dispersion, so not necessarily the answer solution to the emissions. This next image, we have an example of an alternative use of the hydronic heater, and that is to heat someone's swimming pool. Hot tubs, pools, whatever needs hot water can literally be used. And of course, that means this type of unit can be used really all year round, not just during the winter months. Another tool that's available to address hydronic heaters at the local level is a model rule that the Northeast States for Coordinated Air Use Management has developed. It's essentially a model rule that you can take off the shelf at the state or local level and develop your own rule. It outlines the emission limits and the labeling requirements, has some information on setback requirements from property lines, structures, and homes, stack height information, other information that you can then modify and use for your own regulation in your own community. So you can find that on NESCOM's website. And it's a great tool. I encourage you to take a look at that. Several states have already taken that rule and developed their own regulations. Moving on to fireplaces, we're going to talk a little bit about both existing fireplaces. There are over 30 million existing fireplaces in homes today. Talk a little bit about retrofits and possibilities there, but then also new construction and new construction fireplaces. EPA has a program that's been recently initiated with new construction of fireplaces. Wanted to first show you a couple images of traditional fireplaces. You have a masonry fireplace and then the manufactured or prefabricated fireplaces. Masonry fireplaces, most of you are very familiar with. Both masonry and manufactured fireplaces are really not energy efficient nor clean burning typically. Actually, the hearth industry approached EPA several years ago because fireplaces were being banned in new construction in homes in California in particular, and said, hey, can we develop together in partnership a voluntary program where we can develop fireplaces that are cleaner burning that could then potentially be used in areas where there are air quality problems or where fireplaces are being banned. You may wonder, well, how many new fireplaces are being built every year? Well, really, before the economic downturn, there were over 450,000 fireplaces being installed every year. So there's certainly potential for emissions from those new constructed fireplaces. The voluntary partnership fireplace program essentially the goal was to reduce emissions as much as we possibly can. In this partnership agreement with the industry, EPA has around 6 partners. There's Phase 1 and Phase 2, similar to the hydronic heater program, where Phase 1 qualifications are 34% cleaner burning, and then the Phase 2 is about 57% cleaner burning. So they are a bit cleaner burning, certainly, and a program that's just really getting underway. Again, that is for new construction fireplaces. In terms of the other, millions of fireplaces in homes, there are a couple opportunities for really retrofits of existing fireplaces. There are new catalysts that have been recently developed that may help significantly reduce emissions from existing fireplaces, essentially inserts into the cavity of the chimney. And then there's also recently an add-on device that supplements wood burning with gas, kind of a hybrid gas fireplace that holds promise. And just look for more information on our website, our BurnWise website, or contact me if you're interested in knowing more about these products. Relatively new, holds a lot of promise. We're looking forward to seeing more from the industry and opportunities for some new technologies to come out to address existing fireplaces. BurnWise education campaign. This is a campaign that's really targeted and meant for the states and locals and tribes to take on and implement, working with EPA and industry and others. It's really targeted at operators of both old and new wood stoves and fireplaces, hydronic heaters. It's really the message is to burn the right wood the right way and the right wood burning appliance. We're looking at trying to get the word out, and I think this is really critical to any effort that goes underway is to educate the public. Without getting the public educated, it's really tough for them to take action, to feel like they need to move in that direction of investing in something and changing their behavior. So it's really important. We've got our strategy really to develop, in which we've developed some things and distribute materials to all of you. The program was launched back in October of 2009 in Keene, New Hampshire. We have a BurnWise website, has lots of materials, information related to various programs we have on wood burning, a lot of the same information that we've gone over here. Specific to the BurnWise campaign, we have a fact sheet for the wood burner, some basics on tips for burning clean. There is another, what we're calling a buck slip. Developed this for chimney sweeps to essentially provide for each one of their visits to their homes to burn the right wood the right way and the right appliance, and then give some of the basic tips on burning clean. So these are materials, information that we have available. Posters can be used at a community center, at a firehouse. Hearth retailers are putting these up in their stores. However you could use it in your community, we will have those available also. Kristen Bremer is our contact for the BurnWise campaign. Kristen can be reached at the information that's shown on the screen. Moving from BurnWise to the New Source Performance Standard, which I mentioned earlier on, is that we are in the process of updating this rule. It was promulgated way back in 1988, and we're looking at really reducing the exemptions, the non-affected sources, and tightening the emissions limits on this New Source Performance Standard. We're certainly evaluating whether or not to include hydronic heaters, pellet stoves. Some pellet stoves that currently have to be EPA certified, some are exempt, and masonry heaters may or may not be included. We're looking at other biomass, corn, switchgrass, potentially coal, to include coal stoves. Also evaluating whether or not to include the prefabricated fireplaces, masonry fireplaces, and the New Source Performance Standard. Gil Wood is the contact for this project, and Gil's contact information is likewise up on the screen. So that's the New Source Performance Standard in a nutshell. We're moving forward with that. If you're interested, contact Gil. Really, the other last couple items I wanted to mention here today is that strategies for reducing residential wood smoke resource guide. I mentioned that earlier on. A lot of the information that we've gone through is in this document, the education and outreach tools, the information on regulatory options. I haven't talked a lot about burn bans or passing limits or regulatory approaches for controlling emissions at the local level, but this document has a lot of information on some of the ordinances that have been used and are being used throughout the country to address residential wood smoke. One of the more innovative and I think powerful tools is the ordinance that removal of your old stove upon resale of your home. There, for instance, in the state of Oregon is a requirement to do that. We have links to that kind of information. Within this document, we have wood stove and fireplace change-out information, the funding options that I talked about, and some of the details that we did not highlight today. A hydronic heater program, you can find out more about that, the partnerships associated with it. Emissions and air quality improvements, we have information, again, some of the same kind of information is in this document that we talked about today. It's a great guide. I hope that you have take the chance to look through it and really use that as your guide to addressing residential wood smoke in your community. In summary, we believe that addressing residential wood smoke is really an effective tool for reducing fine particle pollution, addressing air toxics, both indoors and outdoors. Wood as an alternative source of fuel is likely to increase, certainly in many states where there are incentives for going from fossil fuels to biomass. So this is a reality that I think we face, so there's potential for more emissions from residential wood combustion. As it relates to climate change, there are certainly some potential benefits as you have more complete combustion and more energy efficient units, reducing black carbon and methane, and more complete combustion and fuel efficient products certainly can reduce CO2 emissions also. The tools available for programs. We have programs available. There is information certainly at your fingertips. Financial challenges for changing out wood stoves, for instance, or moving from old hydronic heaters to newer are certainly challenges that we face. But in the whole, we really believe that there are great examples out there. There are tools of information available, and EPA at the national and regional level have resources in terms of technical expertise, information to help you implement your programs to address fine particles in your state, your local community. If you need more information, you'd like to contact me, Larry Brockman, either via email or phone, and we'll try to help you or send you to your regional office who can certainly help you also. Otherwise, thank you, and I hope you found this information useful.